Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Tarot Unicorns and Coffee event, Full Moon in Cancer celebration. Today is going to be a celebration as we invite these moon energies in and we gain a deeper understanding of the moon, of what it's doing, and of all of the other important things going on in our sky right now that might affect what's going on in our lives right now. So the first thing I want to do is go over some guidelines for this Tarot Unicorns and Coffee event. We only have two guidelines here. Most of you are familiar with them. The first one is love and light always. Please hold yourself in love and light, and please hold everyone else in love and light who has come into this meeting with us as we energetically share this space. And then the second rule is don't start no shit, won't be no shit. And y'all all know what that means. So let's all behave responsibly and respectfully of the space that we are co-creating. With that being said, I'm going to introduce myself. For those of you that don't know, I am Valerie Lewis. I'm the founder of Tarot Unicorns and Coffee. And this is my wonderful friend and brilliant astrologer, Robin Poole. The way we handle these events is we kind of go back and forth between, and her kitty. We go back and forth between Robin and I try to keep a kind of beginner intermediate level introduction to some of the ideas and some of what's going on. And then Robin goes deep and gives us a lot of additional insight. So we're going to talk about the energies. Robin's going to talk about rituals because I have not prepared any rituals. I will kind of hint at some things that you can do to pull these energies in, but I don't have any specific rituals for this session. And just to give you guys a heads up, going into 2022, I like that head bump. Let's head bump, Robin. Going into 2022, I'm wanting these events and all of my events to be a lot more creative and a lot more free flowing. So I'm moving away from a lot of the structure because, I mean, they're going to be structured to an extent. But because I want to invite more fun into these events and into your lives and into my life. And I also got a really powerful reading that said that's the path that I need to be on, and I'm loving it. So these events will be kind of more free flowing as far as my contribution to it. And I'm so grateful that Robin is here to reel us in and give us a really more focused look at it because I love Robin's portion of the event. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Robin so she can bring us all together and ground us and get us focused for this event.
Okay, yes. So it's kind of funny, Valerie, that you mentioned being more free-flowing because I decided I did create slides for today, but I changed up several of them. So I've decided to have a completely new slide style, which will be coming in the next event. But yeah, so new slide style. So I'm totally up for your feedback and what you guys think about the presentation today because it is a little bit different. And as usual, Valerie and I are on the same wavelength. It's kind of incredible. I did a year ahead astrology reading for a client yesterday who had just had a year ahead tarot reading from Valerie. Totally, like, we didn't coordinate at all. And it was really interesting to see the overlaps between what you said, Valerie, and what I said. And yeah, it was really cool. Okay. All right. So I'm going to invite you guys to ground and center with me. You can close your eyes if you like. Roll your neck around and shoulders, any place where you might be keeping tension. And I'm going to invite you to just let any worries or concerns drop away. If you feel like you might need them later, you can put some in a metaphorical basket at your feet and pick them back up. But let's let everything go for the moment that isn't being here and now, enjoying ourselves, enjoying our bodies and our time together, and tuning in to the nurturing energies of the Cancer moon and the planets in the sky and all the energies that are around us to support ourselves. So let your tension fall away, any worries or fears. And you can ground or center yourself however is comfortable for you. So if that is centering on the flame in the center of your heart, if it's letting your attention ride out so that you're expanding out to fill your space, it is good and right for you to take up space on this planet and you belong here. You're a valuable member of our society along with everybody else. If you want to let your energy flow down into the earth, like the roots from a tree, connect down into the earth, or connect out to the flowers and plants around you and your environment. Or maybe you want to stretch up to the stars and connect to the celestial energies that are around us. Or maybe you have a pet or a friend or a partner. Or maybe you're kind of like me and you might be doing all of the above with a sort of 360-degree grounding and centering. And we can take a moment to set some intentions for whatever it is that you would like to get out of today's event. So take a moment and just think, how do I want to benefit from being here today? Maybe that's a problem in your life you want to solve, something that's not going well or a friction spot. Or maybe you just need some peace and time for yourself, not worry and think about everything else going on. Or maybe you want to feel like part of a community so that even though we're not in the same physical location, we all are part of an energetic community here. Just take a moment and ask spirit or your higher self or your celestial partners or source for whatever you want for today. And I'm going to set my intention as a presenter that everybody can get what they need as individuals from this, and that it's not about believing everything that Valerie or I say or rushing around to implement all of it or doing the ritual exactly as I put it together, but that everybody can be empowered and inspired to take what works for them and keep or tweak or toss to come up with something that really helps them find that next step on their path. And since it's Cancer, I'm going to ask an intention that we all can feel more nurtured, tune into our own sources of nurturing, and then turn that around and have more nurturing flow from us to others. Not that we're taking care of people in a way that is diminishing or exhausting to us, but that we can find a way to take care of others that also nurtures and energizes and takes care of us. And that we'll create a community while we're here that's supportive and open and people can share what's going on with them and ask questions. But that when we leave, we won't have any untoward energies clinging to us. We'll make a nice clean break and take with us what is nurturing and positive for us and leave behind anything that belongs to somebody else. And that this will really be like the diving board that catapults us into our own next step and leaves us feeling refreshed and energized and focused and whatever else it is we want to feel. And I want to say thank you to all of the energies that are here with us today to support a great meeting. And I want to set up a nice bubble around us to keep out any energies of fear and worry or any negative spirits that might be attracted, but that are not what we want in our space. I'm just going to give you a minute or two to settle into that, whatever that means for you. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and we'll come back and learn about the powerful, loving, and warm, nurturing Cancer moon.
Love that. Thank you. That was beautiful. My favorite part was when you talked about expanding our energy and that we are deserving of our place here in the universe. I really like that part. Thank you so much, Robin. All right, well, let's get into it. I will get things started by talking about full moon in Cancer. And let me start my screen share. I hope I have it keyed up correctly. I think I do. One moment. Present. There we go. Can everybody see that? I haven't presented from this particular website before, so I'm hoping it works properly. So the first thing I want to talk about is we come together on the new moon and the full moon. And we know about those energies. We're very familiar with those energies, but I want to expand everyone's knowledge base just a little and talk about the moon and all of its phases. Because by the time we get to the full moon, which is what we're about approaching now, just so that you know, it happens on the 19th. I do believe I'm right on that one. Once we get to the full moon, we're talking about a period where everything has already, for the most part, manifested, and we're being thankful about it. So let's talk about how we actually get to those manifestations, though, by kind of giving a one-on-one beginner look at all of the phases of the moon. So we start with the new moon, which we've talked about many times in our new moon ceremonies. It's like a blank slate. The moon is dark moon, and it's when you are able to write across that dark blank slate all of your intentions for the upcoming cycle. So the new moon is when you set your intentions. The next phase is the waxing crescent. So this is when we start to see a little bit of light come in, and it's a good time to set our intentions. Those intentions that we wrote, really get clear on them, really get focused in on them and set them. Then we have first quarter, which is if you were to leave out the waxing crescent and the gibbous phases, you would still have 4 major phases, which would be new moon, first quarter, full moon, and third quarter. But I'm going to give you all 8. So we move into first quarter, which is a very significant phase as well. And this would be the phase when you start to take action. Let me emphasize inspired action. Let yourself be led by your connection to spirit, by your connection to yourself and your own knowing, and only take those actions that feel good. Those actions that feel like, I can't not do this. That's how you know it's an inspired action. So first quarter moon is a good time to take action towards those intentions that you've set in place. And if you are connected with your guides, like most of you are, you will know what is the next step for me to take to make these intentions come about. And so that's when you start taking those actions. And then we have waxing gibbous, where it's getting much bigger. And this is a time to focus. Again, it's all about focus, but this is the time to take a more intentional, mindful focus. So you're in the action phase and you're wanting to reassess and focus and ask, are these actions really inspired? Are these actions moving me towards my goal? Has my goal changed any since I set those intentions? So it's really a time to refocus and continue moving forward as you go into the full moon, which is where we are now. So you've done all of the work with manifesting, with listening to your guides, taking inspired action, with refocusing in that final push just to make sure everything is working as it should. And then you come upon where we are now, or where we are approaching. We're actually still in the focus stage. So you guys still have a lot of chance to get in those last steps that we just talked about. But then we move into the manifestation. The full moon, when your manifestations, when you're seeing the result of your inspired actions, where you're seeing the result of how spirit has led you from your intention to the manifestation. So I just thought it was important. We've talked for almost the better part of last year about full moon, new moon, full moon, set the intention, get the manifestation. We don't really talk about the in-between phase as much. And so I wanted to add that in because there are very specific ways that you can work with the moon between the new moon and the full moon to pull that power in to help you get to this stage of manifestation. So today, full moon, we're talking about manifestations. This is when the moon is fully illuminated, shining a light on everything that you've done over the past couple of weeks as you were working towards your manifestation. And this is when everything comes to fruition, everything comes to the surface. The full moon is about bringing things to the surface and about realizing and celebrating your manifestations. And then after the full moon, it slowly starts to go away. So we have waning gibbous. I always want to say gibbous, waning gibbous. And that's a chance to be grateful, to spend some time in reflection of everything that did manifest for us with the energies of the moon, and to be grateful. Show that gratitude for our path, gratitude for ourselves, being open and receiving to listen to those inspired actions and those nudges from spirit, and gratitude, of course, always for the divine. And also a chance to look at what worked and what didn't work. Third quarter, another one of the main phases of the moon that we can focus on bringing energies in, is about letting go. So we've had these manifestations, we've been grateful, we've reflected on what worked and what didn't work. Third quarter is an excellent time to let go of what didn't work, let go of those fears that may have held us back from our full manifestation, let go of any ideas that we had about how things should have turned out, and let go of anything that didn't work out so that we can kind of flush that from our system, because now we're approaching the new moon again so that we can reset those intentions. So third quarter is letting go. And then waning crescent, the very last phase before the new moon, is surrendering. So we've let go and now we're going to surrender. And surrender to me can mean many different things. Surrender to me as it relates to the moon, it's turning within and allowing yourself to be receiving of the guidance that is coming from spirit. Allowing yourself to be in communion, that's not the word, be in cooperation with the divine. That's what surrender means to me. It doesn't mean surrender your goals and just saying, well, whatever you think should come to me, go ahead. No, that's not what surrender means to me. Surrender means surrendering your control over the situation and inviting the divine in so that you all can work more collectively towards your goals. And then after waning crescent, we repeat the cycle and move back into new moon and reset new intentions. So I just thought it was important to kind of go over the various stages so that we can work with the moon throughout the month, not just on the big heavy hitters, new moon and full moon. I think I have one more slide. Going the wrong way. What was my last slide? Oh, the last slide was just to show you the worksheet, which that link has been dropped on the event page and also in the comments. If anyone needs it, go ahead and put in chat that you need it and I'll drop the link again. That's just a handy dandy little worksheet that you can use. It can be used for the full moon, but it can also be used. You can see there's a part where it talks about being grateful, what you're going to release, the things that you're embracing. So you can use it through some of the other phases too, as you work towards the manifestations of the new moon. So that's what I have for that portion. Here we go. Awesome. Yes, Lisa, I will drop the link just as soon as I'm through with this portion when I turn it over to Robin, because I've got to go find it because I didn't make a note of it. I'm telling y'all. Okay, so that was the moon phases. So let's talk about what's going on right now with our full moon in Cancer. This moon is also called, it's the first full moon of 2022. It's also called the wolf moon. And what I found out about why it's called the wolf moon is because this is generally the time of the year towards the end of the year and beginning of the new year when wolves are the most active. So you hear them in more chorus. They're more active. And so during the full moon, they're howling at the full moon because that's what wolves do. And our ancestors decided to call it the wolf moon because they were so active and so vocal. There are probably more legends. That was the one that came up as far as why it's called the wolf moon. And I was just like, oh, makes sense. I'm going with that one. So it's also called the wolf moon. There's a couple of tie-ins that one of the articles I was reading made to the wolf moon, and I found it interesting. Let me find it. No, I'll come to it later. Let me stay on track. Full moon in Cancer. So this is the full moon in Cancer. As I talked about before, the full moon is when it's most illuminated and it brings things to the surface in our earth and also in ourselves as human. It brings our emotions absolutely to the surface, but it also illuminates some things in our life, in our personal inner work. It just brings it all to the surface and makes it more visible so that we can work with it and so that we can grow from it. This is all about our spiritual growth. So with the full moon falling in the sign of Cancer, y'all, we are in for a very incredible, fantastical, optimistic, emotional ride, because Cancer is also a very emotional sign and it is a water sign. And it just so happens that the moon, let me see if I can phrase this correctly, the moon rules the sign of Cancer. or Cancer. Anyway, one in the, okay, I said it right. Robin gave me the thumbs up. The moon rules the sign of Cancer, which means the moon is at home in this house, in this astrological sign. The moon is the most comfortable. The moon can do its best work in this sign of Cancer. And as the two work together on our emotions, just know that you might be feeling a little bit more emotional during this full moon than you might feel, right? Than you might feel in other full moons, like a grounded full moon, like a full moon in Taurus or Capricorn. This one is emotions on top of emotions, and it's very, very good. I think that it's coming in January, because as we look out over our whole year, and a lot of us use January to plan our year ahead or to look at what we would like to do differently, this is giving us a chance to deal with all of those things, all of those emotions, especially if there are emotions like fear or doubt or disbelief. Deal with all of those emotions that might be holding us back from our goals. Now is the time to shine some light on them and deal with them and clear them out, and to welcome in and magnify and amplify all of those emotions that are working to our benefit. It's just a very emotional time, but we can look at that as a benefit, so that how can we pick through these emotions and figure out which ones aren't serving us now that we're aware of them, more heightened aware of them, and which ones are serving us as we look ahead to the year. So that's what I wanted to say about the full moon in Cancer. Let's see, I've got some notes. Let me make sure I went over all of them. I'm just going to read straight from this note, but I think I said it already. But when a full moon takes place in Cancer, it becomes that much more special and potent, because the moon can do its best work while moving through this nurturing, intuitive, and heartfelt water sign. Nurturing, intuitive, and heartfelt are very key words for that Cancer energy. Okay, so I did want to talk about the wolf moon. Now here's where the wolf moon comes in place when you think of the wolf moon in Cancer, because when you think about wolves and how they operate in a pack, so think about your own packs, your own family or your own close circle of friends, or maybe your work situation if you feel very at home and very comfortable with your workmates. Think about that pack, and this full moon in Cancer is going to allow you to examine how you behave in this surrounding, in this pack. Are you the one that nurtures the pack and takes care of the pack because it's very Cancer sign? Are you feeling that towards your pack or your homies? Or is this a time to reevaluate that and decide that maybe this is not the pack I want to run with anymore? Maybe I want to change some things. So it's a very good time to examine not only yourself and that inner work, but also examine just a little bit, just because it's kind of tied to the wolf moon. Because it has the theme of the wolf moon, also consider those that are closest to you in your pack. Let's see. Is there anything else I wanted to mention about the full moon in Cancer? Let me just check one more thing. I think that's all I wanted to mention from my notes about the full moon in Cancer. But I want to go to my cards, because y'all know I'm a card kind of gal. And we're going to read full moon in Cancer, and it says, let your fears dissolve. I'll pull the card. I haven't read the card yet, so we're going to read it together. Fear. Fear and neediness may now be at play. Fear is debilitating, while neediness isn't usually very attractive. Acting out of fear is a risky response. So if you dwell on your insecurities, what you'll manifest is an extension of those insecurities. The reason why we should face our fears is that in doing so, they often simply dissolve. If we don't face them, they can influence us to act in ways that we otherwise wouldn't, which means we can end up manifesting the very thing we're hoping to avoid. To see if the fear is in you, face it right now. So again, if you have fear in you, please know that it's going to be pulled to the surface during this time. And you might feel like, why am I so scared of this thing? Because I'm usually not really this apprehensive, or maybe you're having more panic attacks or more anxiety attacks. Know that these are energies that you can work with. Don't pull away from that, but realize that this is the moon shining light on those so that you can figure out what they are and work with them and work through them. I completely love and accept myself as I am is one of the affirmations that you might be called to pull in during this full moon in Cancer. I'm going to read through. So here's when it gets into some of the things that you can use that are not specifically a ritual, because I did not prepare a ritual, but you might want to include some of these things for manifesting under this full moon. Patchouli essential oil. I think I said that right. Patchouli essential oil is known to help with these energies. It says you can call in Selene, goddess of the moon, to guide you. I'm going to say that you can also work with her namesake crystal, which is selenite, if you're into crystals. And you know what? I would also say that this would be a really good time to meditate with a crystal that represents the moon, if you're into meditation as a ritual, because this is going to give you the chance to set the tone for your year. So go into meditation asking, how can you pull these energies in? What do you need to be aware of? What needs to be illuminated so that you can better reach your goals? Selenite is one, moonstone is one. Those are my two favorite. I know there's more, but those are my two favorites specifically related to the moon. And I do believe that's all I want to say about that particular card and about full moon in Cancer. I do want to touch on a couple of other pretty cool things going on up in the sky. I'm gonna call everything cool. I'm gonna stay optimistic, y'all. I'm trying. So let me see, what's the first thing I want to talk about? Jupiter in Pisces trine. What's a trine, Valerie? Oh, you guys ask the best questions. When planets are 120 degrees apart, the aspect is called a trine. Think triangle. Trines are as positive as they get. So if you're reading something and it says trine, or somebody mentions a trine, just think positive. That's a positive aspect. So it's when two planets within the same element are working in harmony. So we have the full moon in Cancer, and that trines Jupiter, which is in Pisces. So the Jupiter in Pisces energy is going to also affect the full moon in Cancer energy. Jupiter is a planet that you want. Jupiter is about abundance. So I know I have more notes on that. I don't know where they're at. I just wanted to point out that Jupiter in Pisces is going on right now. I do have astrological cards, and I'm just going to read the high points on the planet Jupiter. No, I'm not, because I don't have that one bookmarked. Hold on, let me find it. I got some other ones bookmarked because we got a whole bunch going on. Jupiter is the planet of abundance. So let's just work with that. Although we have this, we're working on our emotions and bringing those to the surface. We also have this supporting energy with the trine from Jupiter talking about abundance. And let me talk a little bit more about abundance. Jupiter symbolizes how we expand our world. And we can do that through education, law, philosophy, travel, abundance, and just having an expansive spirit. I'm going to leave it there. There's a lot more information I can go into over Jupiter, but I'm going to leave it there. I just want you to aware, again, I try to give you the basic, beginner, intermediate. I'm sure Robin's going to go deeper, but just to be aware that there's a beneficial trine going on right now. The next thing I want to talk about is retrogrades. So we have Venus in retrograde, which went into retrograde December 19th. So it's been in retrograde for a little bit. And we also have Mercury in retrograde, which went into retrograde yesterday, January 14th. Venus stays in retrograde until the 29th of January. And then Mercury also comes out of retrograde just a few days later on February 3rd. I had to figure that out. January 29th, February 3rd. So for this period, we have two of those planets in retrograde. What does that mean? Let's talk about Mercury first. Mercury's retrograde, as of yesterday, started in the sign of Aquarius, an air sign, and it will move into Capricorn around the 25th of January, which we will talk about the effect of Mercury in retrograde in Capricorn on our next event, which will be on the 29th, which will be closer to those energies. Those energies will still be prevalent, even though it ends on the 29th. It'll still, anyway, y'all understand. We'll talk about it in Capricorn further down the road. But right now, the energy of this Mercury retrograde is also pulling in the energy of Aquarius because it's in that sign. Aquarius is an air sign. Mercury is also an action sign. It's considered in mythology, it's the messenger to the gods. It's one of our fastest moving planets. So it's all about action. It also rules communication. I know a lot of you have heard, don't make communication, try not to have big conversations. Your technology is going to be affected. I agree with all of that, but I don't think it's something that should keep you deciding to put yourself in a bunker and shut off your cell phones and not come onto a Zoom call because technology. Retrogrades give us a chance to examine things more closely. Mercury in retrograde affecting communication is a chance for you to take a pause and just kind of turn within. You know what? Oh, if I can't reach out to that friend because for whatever reason, we just can't seem to catch up with each other over the phone. Okay, that's cool. I just get to spend more time by myself, getting to know me. Yay. So we can look at it on the positive side. We don't have to always look at the negative things. We can look at this as a period, all retrogrades, as periods to turn within, as periods to rest, and as periods to really examine how we want to move forward once we come out of this retrograde. This is explaining retrograde as it's not that you shouldn't do anything. I'm reading right from my text. It's that it all just feels a little bit harder. You can still make the drive. You just have to shovel your car out of the snow first, which is very relevant to me because it just snowed in KC and I have to go somewhere tonight and I have to shovel my car out first. And I'm just like, oh, okay. The cruise becomes a slog. So it's not that you can't do these things. It's just that you need to be aware of them and you need to work with them. Understanding that it might take you a little bit longer to get you to your desired effect, understanding that if technology is being affected, maybe this is a time to figure out your backups. Maybe you can go back to the good old days of writing your pen pal and mailing a letter. That sounds like fun. I love that. Y'all, I love getting letters in the mail. That might be something I'm saying that offhandedly, but that might be pretty cool. So that's Mercury in retrograde. There's so much information on Mercury in retrograde. I don't want to spend too much time on that other than to let you know that it is going on. Let me see if there's anything else that seemed important with it being in the sign of Aquarius. I'm going to read this part. The logical and intellectual air sign nature of Aquarius will help us step back and stay calm during any communication mishaps. So Aquarius, y'all have heard the song, The Age of Aquarius. When I think Aquarius, I think hippie, I think laid back, not bothered, just cool. So you have that energy dealing with this Mercury in retrograde. It helps you to stay calm and it helps you just to deal with anything that might come up. Moving on, we also have Venus in retrograde. Venus, lovely Venus. Venus is the planet associated with love, beauty, and also abundance. That was a new one for me. So I always just said Venus love, but it's love, beauty, and abundance. And she also rules money. So she's in retrograde, and she's in retrograde in the sign of Capricorn. And those of you that were at the last event understand Capricorn is that goat that very determined that I'm going to make it to the top of the mountain. So we have Venus in retrograde in a very grounded, determined sign. What does that mean for us? What does that mean for us? Let me find my notes. In Capricorn, so Venus is, think of Venus as the starlet, the movie star. She's very, I want the world to see me, and I need the world to see how beautiful I am, and then I need them to love me. She's very outgoing. She's very extrovert. I would think of Venus as the ultimate extrovert, princess style. Look at me, I'm so glamorous. So when you think of Venus like that, and then you put her in retrograde in a Capricorn sign, hold on, y'all. So Venus wants to be seen, and she likes to be seen claiming her successes, often and especially. So she is most materialistic and obvious. So when she's thrown backwards, I love this site because it puts it into row terms, and I'm just like, I can relate to that. When she's thrown backwards, it says that the planet goes from a 9 of Pentacles. For those of y'all that know 9 of Pentacles, it's a very eloquent lady pictured in a beautiful garden with a very exotic bird as a pet, and she's dressed fancifully. She's very abundant, very wealthy. It takes her from that state, the 9 of Pentacles, and throws her into the 5 of Pentacles. The 5 of Pentacles is all about challenge. The 5 of Pentacles is represented by people who are ill-equipped for the bad weather. They're barefoot in the snow. They're walking. There we go. They're huddled up. They're not abundant at all. And they're passing by a church. They're not seeing that they can go in and get the shelter that they need. They're not aware of it. So imagine going from that opulent, queenly type energy to this type energy. That's kind of the feel of Venus in retrograde. Thank you so much, Robin. But how can we work with these energies? Because retrogrades aren't bad. It's going to give us a lesson in there somewhere. The lesson of Venus in retrograde is to take a closer look at those things that, how do I want to say it? At the things that you associate with all of that. The things that you associate with love, the things that you associate with abundance. It's going in retrograde now, so now you can take a closer look at those things. Let me see what it says specifically. It doesn't. I'm just going to give you my interpretation because it's not in my notes. So when it goes into retrograde, just like I said, it gives you a chance to evaluate your love relationships. How do I want to be loved? How am I loving others? Am I loving others? Am I withholding my love because I'm using it as a tool or something that I shouldn't be using as a, what's the word? A bargaining chip. It lets you evolve all of the, not evolve, evaluate all of these things. Beauty. Venus is really good on beauty. What do I consider as beautiful? Have I been giving myself negative mind chatter, telling myself I'm not as beautiful as I really am, or putting undue stigmatisms or standards on what I consider beautiful? It gives you a chance as we go into retrograde to examine all of these things so that when you come out of retrograde, or when we all come out of retrograde, your understanding of love, beauty, and abundance is more solidified. It's more in line, it's more in tune. So this is a chance of reflection. Some suggestions, it says that, I mentioned it earlier, Venus also rules money. So with that being said, Mercury, communication, Venus, love, both in retrograde. Maybe now would not be the best time to have that conversation with your loved one that you've been holding off on. Know that conversations around things associated with money, love, and beauty might just be a little bit more difficult. Not saying don't have it, but I'm saying be aware of that so that you can really, really concentrate on, if this conversation needs to happen now while all of this is in retrograde, let me make sure I'm taking a moment to pause before I open my mouth. Maybe I even want to write an outline before I call in my significant other and having this conversation, just to make sure that I'm expressing myself and I'm expressing what I want to express. So again, retrogrades are not a time to go into a cave and stop doing everything. It's a time to just be aware and to take things a lot slower and to realize where some potential challenges might exist. I think that's all I wanted to say specifically. I have some cards for Mercury, and I'm just going to read it's 2 pages, y'all. I'm just going to read the card for Mercury. I love it. It gives you that symbol that we're all very familiar with. The catechus, is that how you say it? Caduceus, I don't know. Anyway, Caduceus, okay. It says my internet connection is unstable. Can y'all still hear me? Am I breaking up? I'm good? Okay, I'm good. Mercury symbolizes your mental switchboard, how you think, communicate, and move through the world. That's all I'm going to read about Mercury in the interest of time. Venus, the other planet that is retrograde. It kind of almost reminds me of the Tarot card, Nine of Pentacles, because it's just a beautiful garden scene. So Venus, her keyword says beloved. Venus symbolizes your heart, romance, and the creative process. So
Valerie, you are muted now for some reason.
oh, there we go. I had some noise in the background. So we have Mercury and Venus both in retrograde, but in positive aspects, you can see that it's giving you, so you would want to read it in positive aspects to see what area of your life this retrograde is asking you to examine. So I do believe that's all I have to say. Let me go over my notes one more time to make sure I didn't miss something, because I had a lot of notes. It was a lot going on in the sky. It seems like there was one other planet I wanted to mention. Did I talk about Pluto?
No.
Okay. Pluto was doing something too, I think. Where was Pluto? Opposition. I didn't talk about oppositions. So trines are harmonious. Remember, we said trines are positive, oppositions. I do want to talk about oppositions. Oppositions are when they're across the opposite on the chart, on your natal chart. It's what's opposite, which means that these signs, any opposition, would sit 180 degrees apart. So as our full moon moves into Cancer, and we're watching all of the other things move around in the chart as well, we're looking and we're seeing that something is directly opposite us now. So they're not always the same. It's not like every time we have full moon in Cancer, that's the same. So the opposition, where's it at? It says oppositions are challenging, but that being said, aren't challenges in life crucial to growth? And I love that. Yes, of course they are. That's how we grow. Oh, that's what I wanted to pull in. It's just that I know there was something about Pluto and I'm not seeing it, but let me just stay with the fact that I wanted to mention that the Venus retrograde, where Venus is currently in the sky, is in opposition to our full moon in Cancer. So we also have that energy working and present as well. Why do I keep thinking I'm forgetting something about Pluto? I don't know.
I'll mention, by the way, that I'm going to show the chart and you'll be able to see, I have some material on Pluto and you'll be able to see the opposition and the trine in just a moment. So we'll have a visual.
Got you. Cool.
For all of that. Yeah.
So the last thing I want to end with is just a question that you can ask yourself regarding this Venus, everything that's going on with Venus, is what do you really want? And what emotional burdens are keeping you from growing into your next phase? What do you really want, and what emotional burdens, because we know we're illuminating our emotions, are keeping you from growing into your next phase? So that's what I have, and I am going to turn it over to Robin. Thank you all so much.
Great. Thank you, Valerie. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts, or is this resonating with people? Anything you want to share before we dive into taking a look at some of these? Oh, Valerie has something she wants to share. I can tell by your expression, Valerie, that you have something.
I forgot. I have an extra special guest that's going to tell us just a little bit more about Cancer energy, because she described it in such a way that I'm just like, you gotta explain it. Nicole, go for it. It's going to be short, y'all. Wait. Oh, yeah.
Nicole, you're muted.
Yeah, I gotta.
Yeah, she had to allow me to unmute myself. I
There we
couldn't do
go.
it myself. So I was thinking about the water signs. You know, you have Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. And as we go through those water signs, there's like this progression of aggression. Pisces is very mellow, go with the flow. Cancers are pretty mellow, but they got a little bite to them because they got those pinchers. And then Scorpio has a tail, which means they can attack when needed. So just keep in mind that yes, Cancer is very nurturing, but it can also have a little edge to it as well.
I loved it. I love the pinchers part. Thank you, Nicole.
Oh, I was just going to say that my mom is a Cancer and that describes her perfectly. So thank you.
All right, Robin, back over to you.
Okay, yeah. I think that's really accurate. And people talk a lot about the nurturing and emotional side of Cancer, but Nicole is absolutely right that Cancer, because of the nurturing and emotional side, also has a protective side. And people sometimes describe Cancer, to use the metaphor of the crab, as like there's a bit of a tough shell on the outside, and the inside is very tender and nurturing. But when threatened, or when there's a perception that someone that they care about is threatened, Cancer can definitely have the sort of like protect, ward off evil type feel. And, in my opinion, every animal deserves the opportunity to defend itself appropriately. So yeah, I appreciate that. I think that's great. All right, and then we're going to be looking, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about the astrology, and we're going to see a visual to look at the chart, and you'll be able to see the trines and the oppositions. And so if you have any questions that come up while I'm doing this, please feel free to put them in the chat. I can't see you because I'm sharing my screen, but Valerie will monitor the chat and ask anything that you want to ask about. So, okay, let me share my screen here. So Christina, I don't know if I pronounced that right, Christina said that this is kind of like a double moon. And I think she meant that in the sense that Cancer rules the moon. And so Cancer's nurturing emotional energies really bring out the full moon's nurturing and emotional energies as well. But it turns out it's also a double moon because both the tropical sign and the sidereal sign are the same here. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
You can see it? Okay, perfect. So the difference between tropical and sidereal astrology, tropical astrology is what most people are doing when we do Western astrology. It's what Valerie's been talking about, the moon in Cancer here. But it turns out that that's very useful because it aligns the zodiac with the seasons, which makes sense because as humans, we're very affected by the seasons. And 2,000 years ago, more or less, when modern Western astrology was written down, the actual sky really was aligned with the seasons, and the sign of Aries was at the beginning of spring on the horizon and all that sort of thing. But because there's a wobble in the Earth, or the Earth actually loses 1 degree every 72 years, and now 2,000 years later, the actual position of the stars in the sky are 24 degrees behind the tropical placement. Vedic astrology goes by the sidereal calendar, which is basically like where they are in the actual sky. And then most Western astrology is tropical, although you can do both. And most astrologers do either tropical astrology based on the seasons or sidereal astrology based on the stars. I do both. And I find that the tropical astrology is often a very good idea of what's going on in your inner world. And the sidereal astrology often gives us an idea of how that will manifest or turn out to create in the outer world. So we're going to be looking a little bit at both. If you have questions about this, you can ask or email me later. And anyway, every sign is 30 degrees wide. And since the gap between the tropical and the sidereal is 24 degrees, if you have a moon at the end of a sign, you can still subtract 24 degrees and stay in the same sign, which is what we have right here. So both the tropical moon and the sidereal actual sky placement are both in Cancer. So I don't know if that makes it a quadruple moon, but it means we got a lot of Cancer energies here. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I entitled this how do you nurture connection? That's the question to ask here. So here's a chart of the moon where it's going to be full. And you can see we've got the moon in the lower left here at 27 degrees of Cancer. And then we've got the sun in the right at 27 degrees Capricorn. So this is when they are opposite. So the first thing to be asking is, where is the sign of Cancer in your chart? And depending on what house it's in, that's going to give you some idea of what is highlighted, what like life themes are highlighted for you by this particular moon. So I have Cancer in my 5th house, and the 5th house is a house of joy and creativity. So I'm thinking a lot lately, what is fun for me? How do I want to creatively express myself? I'm not thinking about a lot of like practical concerns or looking at my relationships, because Cancer in my chart is highlighting the issues of the 5th house, joy and creativity. So you could check out your astrology chart for free on astro.com, or Astro Cafe Astrology is another good one. And then if you don't know anything about astrology, you can just look up 7th house issues, and then the internet will tell you what sort of issues are being highlighted. So you're just looking for the sign. It looks like kind of 2 little circles with the little arcs over them here in the left. That's to represent the shell of the crab. So just look for that symbol in your astrology chart and check out the issues of that particular house. Now, beyond that, we can see that the moon here is at 27 degrees of Cancer. That's the tropical placement. And if we subtract 24 degrees, if you actually could go outside and see the constellation behind the moon, you would see that it was more like 3 degrees of Cancer up here. Now, you might be thinking, well, these are both Cancer, right? But because astrology is thousands of years old, there are many ways where we can drill down and figure out kind of like the flavor behind these 2 different locations within the sign of Cancer. So I've done that here. I've just blown this up a little bit, and you can see the tropical placement at 27 degrees. You see this little H right here? That's the term of Saturn. So that's a location in the sign of Cancer that's ruled by the planet or associated with the planet Saturn. And if you look out here, you can see that's in the decan. This is the symbol for the planet Neptune here. And the decans divide the sign into 3 kind of sections, 3 10-degree chunks. And each of them is associated with a planet and another one of the signs in the same element. Same element meaning they're both water signs, or they're all air signs, or earth or fire signs. So our tropical placement here is in the term of Saturn, and it's in the final decan, which is the one that's ruled by the sign of Pisces. And if you've been going to these moon events, you know that I normally just do 2 planets. And one of the changes I decided to make was to start thinking of the decans in terms of signs and not just in terms of planets. So I've expanded our horizons a little bit. And then if we subtract our 24 degrees, we get up to the sidereal placement up here at 3 degrees. And you can see that would be in the term of Mars. And this is the decan that's still ruled by Cancer. So this is a Cancer moon, but it has kind of a Pisces sort of flavor. And it has some Saturn and Mars influences that are going to determine how it actually comes out for us in our lives. Are there any questions thus far?
I'm not seeing anything.
Okay, so let's talk about how these flavors then are going to impact what happens with us. So the other day I took a walk in my little local park, which is a river that kind of goes out to the ocean. And it was an extreme low tide. And what I discovered is a whole bunch of these, and I don't know if these are jellyfish or whatever, I call them jellyfish, I'm not a marine expert. They kind of had gotten stranded on the mud. They were littered the beach here. And you can see that the water had gotten far away from them, right? This is not an animal that's really designed to thrive on the beach. Now, I hope these were okay, because I know the tide was going to come back in and cover them all back up again. But you can see here that this jellyfish, there's a lack of connection to what nurtures it. And that's what we're looking at when we're looking at the tropical side of this. In our inner world, with our Pisces decan and our Saturn, this is about seeing where we are separated from the connection that nurtures us, because Pisces is a sign that's all about connecting. So what we're doing in our inner world with these moon energies is looking for connection that nurtures. So some questions that we can ask is, What do you need to connect to? And then what is impeding your connection? What prevents you from connecting? Maybe that's limiting beliefs that tell you that you're not worthy and nobody wants to connect with you anyway, or it's not safe to connect. Or maybe it's a scheduling issue where you're not taking enough time to connect to your higher self or your divine energies, or you're not taking time for friends because you're too busy. Or maybe it's a COVID thing. You're like, oh, well, we can't connect because of COVID. Well, maybe you can't connect physically, but do you need to connect more virtually? Do you need to have more phone calls with people? Do you need to set up Zoom events with relatives that you haven't seen in person, in years? So what's preventing you from connecting? And then because we have Saturn is a planet that's all about endings, about releasing what's not serving us and figuring out what we want to be really investing in the long term. So then the question is, what can you release to enable the new connection? Maybe you need to release the idea that you don't have enough time. Or maybe you need to release the idea that COVID means we need to be emotionally separate as well as physically separate from others. So in our inner world, we're thinking, what can we connect to that's going to nurture us, or alternatively help us nurture others? It's not all just about, gathering everything for us. You might be seeing people around you who need more nurturing. And I'm going to talk about that in the ritual that I prepared for today. And so our goal in finding this connection that nurtures is to get to the Cancer energies. This is our sidereal placement. So the Cancer, the nurturing energies, and Mars means we might have to take some action. Mars is a planet of acting, or we might have to fight for this. There may be some obstacles that we have to overcome. And this is just a picture of some Canada Goose parent with his or her little goslings that I took at my old apartment. So when you make the connection, then you're able to get that nurturing for yourself and others. So this is action to nurture yourself and others. Valerie talked a lot and very eloquently about emotions. And a lot of times for me, I struggle because I feel like my emotions are a barrier to connection or nurturing. Well, it's not safe. Well, I can't be honest. Well, no one's going to want to talk to me. Well, I'm not doing the right thing. But I really am trying for myself, and you could do this if you wanted to think of my emotions as a source of nurturing. I love that person. I love feeling like we've made a connection. I love the smile on their face when they said, wow, thanks for calling me. I really needed to talk to you. That really helped. You might have to fight for the people that you consider family. Cancer is associated with the 4th house, which is about home and family, both your blood family and also the family you choose. So like friends who feel like family. There are a lot of people out there who are suffering, not just because of the physical aspects of COVID or the lack of connection, but also because of the fear. And I was on an astrology call last night and people were talking about like conspiracy theories and propaganda and the CDC. And it's just like, there's a lot of people out there who need emotional nurturing. And I love when Ava said in the chat, stay positive. And I think we really need to fight to help each other stay positive. And you might need to connect with people so that they can help you stay positive if you feel that you're becoming anxious or your sort of equilibrium is slipping a bit. And then this is also about marshaling resources to protect what's important. Because of Mars's association with battle and fighting, there's a tactical aspect to look around and see what's lacking in your life and how can you really bring together what you're good at and then also take advantage of what your chosen friends and family are good at so that we can all band together and create a positive and nurturing environment for ourselves and for each other. And again, we're going to get into this more. I have a suggestion for this as part of my ritual. Any thoughts or questions about this, or should I move to looking at the astrology? Next slide is the actual astrology itself.
I think we can move on. I'm not seeing any questions.
Okay. So this is the actual chart, as I said, of the event here. And now we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the trines and oppositions that Valerie was mentioning. So the first thing we see is a whole bunch of oppositions. Now I've added a few asteroids to this because I really like these major asteroids. So you might not be familiar with them. You could do more research if you like. But our moon is down here, and then an opposition is a 180-degree relationship. So that's this red line going right across the middle of the chart. The sun is this thing that looks like a donut or Homer Simpson's eyeball. A full moon, by the way, always includes an opposite to the sun. That's why the moon looks full, because the sun is opposite the moon and it's shining its light to illuminate the whole moon. But we also have a pretty near conjunction with Pluto. That's the thing that looks like a P. And then we have a couple more things too here. We've got this thing that looks like a star on a cross, or like a spiked mace, is the asteroid Juno, which is about romantic relationships and finding equality in your relationships and partnerships. And then, as Valerie mentioned, we have Venus. And just so you know, when you see a little R, see the little R right to the right of Venus, that means the planet is in retrograde. R is for retrograde. And then Valerie mentioned, here's Mercury in retrograde right up here. And it turns out actually that Uranus is also in retrograde. So we've got quite a few retrogrades here. So when two planets are opposed, like the moon, which is opposed to the sun and Pluto, and then Juno and Venus, that means that these are energies that are not working so smoothly together. And it can feel like they pull against each other, or it can feel like a teeter-totter when one side is up, the other one is down, and vice versa. Like somehow you can't really balance both of these energies. And all of these oppositions are in Capricorn, which is a very practical, grounded sign of trying to create foundations that last. And what that means is that the moon's nurturing emotional energies here don't play so well with this grounded, foundational, practical Capricorn energy. And at the moment, it's not playing that well either with any of these other energies. So this is the time to dial into this nurturing, emotional, intuitive sense of fighting for what's important. But it's not a time to worry about like trying to transform everything. It's not a time to get into the Capricorn stuff of making everything very practical. This is not a time, as Valerie said, to worry about all of our romantic relationships. And as much as I love Venus, and joy and creativity and aesthetics are good, this is a time to be, as Valerie said, thinking about what creates joy, creativity, and aesthetics. But at the moment, really let your emotions and your intuition and your nurturing energies be the guide. It's not the time to go out and like start a giant new art project. You can do that in a couple of weeks when the energies will have changed. For retrograde, I like re-words like reconsider, reevaluate, reassess, recognize, realize. Don't be trying to create something too practical at this point, because these are all oppositional energies, which means they're detracting you from the intuitive, emotional nurturing, which is what we really should be focusing on right now. But as Valerie mentioned, we have a very nice trine here to Pisces. And the trine, as she said, is a 120-degree angle, and that's this blue line that goes right up here. I like to think of trines as like the coworkers on a team that just love each other and work so well together. You have teamwork and everybody's on the team, but then you have that coworker that you're like, oh man, I just love this person. I personally think that Valerie and I have like a trine relationship where we just kind of feed off of each other. So this is the energies that really are helping us here. Pisces, as we've talked about, is a sign of connection. And then we've got a trine by degree, which means you can see the moon's at 27 degrees and Neptune here and Pallas are at 21 degrees. And then we also have Jupiter. This is called a trine by sign because this is the same element. It's the water sign. You can see they're both blue on the astro.com, the water sign and this water sign. So these are the energies that are going to work really well for us here. Neptune, the energy of mysticism, spirituality, investigating the unknown. Pallas is this asteroid that has kind of like a square or a diamond on top of a cross. That's about partnerships, shield mates, finding somebody to fight with you, finding somebody that you're protecting them and they're protecting you, and friendship. So to contrast the two, Juno here is more about romantic relationships. And Pallas is more like coworkers or shield mates or people who are in the fight with you. So right now we're focusing on partners and shield mates and people to fight with us. And we're not getting so caught up in the whole romantic and attractive side of things. And then as Valerie said, we got Jupiter here. So that's abundance, exploration, and growth. So don't be thinking too practically about things. Instead, really dive into that connection with your physical partners on this planet, with your spirit guides. Anything involving Neptune is kind of, it's not easy to pin down. I had a dream the other night that I was kissing a horse and a dragon, which is not something I can actually go do in reality. And I've been thinking like, how am I going to interpret this as a metaphor? What's the difference between the horse and the dragon? And do I need to take those energies into myself? So you might be having some funky dreams, weird realizations, tarot readings where you're like, I don't really know what this means. Don't take everything literally, but dive into that connection as a way to expand your understanding of what nurturing means and who you can nurture. So again, all these energies, Neptune, Pallas, and Jupiter are the ones we want to rely on. And these other energies, these Capricorn energies, they'll come around. There'll be a time for practicality, but it is not at the moment. All right, any questions on this?
No questions, but Ava agreed. She said, "Oh my God, the dreams." So I guess Ava's having some pretty interesting dreams as well.
Yeah, Neptune will bring in the dreams for sure, or the signs, or like the, you're walking down the street and there's a person standing on the corner who says something to you and you're like, why is this person talking to me? Yeah. So it's kind of, there's a little bit of a buckle up feeling with Neptune. You're meditating and suddenly you find yourself on an alien spaceship. But I really like Neptune for that reason, because it really gets me out of my rut, and it's great for providing insight into new things that you haven't thought of before. Okay, so I decided to give you guys another way to look at the astrological energies here.
I actually have a quick question for you. Speaking about Neptune energy, when you said it gets you out of your box, would you say that now would be a favorable time to maybe meditate with something that represents Neptune so that we can pull in those bigger, expansive ideas?
Yes, absolutely. This would be a great time. Anything that involves connecting to a mystical, cosmic, or unknown source outside of you is highly, which actually could be your own higher intuition. So that's sort of outside of you, but like your own higher self. Something that's not like, today I got up and made breakfast and brushed my teeth. That would be a great thing to do. So if you have a Neptune crystal or you want to research what those are, I would totally recommend that for sure. And you can also harness this water energy, by the way, by meditating near a river or taking a walk by the lake, or putting out some moon water and consuming that. So any sort of water type meditations that you want to do to enhance your receptivity is a good idea. And then if something happens that you're like, I don't even know what this means, just write it down and then ask your higher self or your divine connection for more insight about that. Yeah, did that answer your question?
It does. And we have another question. It says, how long does this energy last for again?
So the energy that is focused on the moon is going to last from the 19th to about like, I don't know, the 20th or 21st, because the moon is going to be moving into Leo at that point. So maybe the 21st. So it's like a 3-day window starting now, really, and then going to a couple of days after that. At that point, the moon is going to be moving off into Leo and she'll be doing something else. The rest of this idea that we have Neptune in Pisces, that's going to be all year long. Jupiter in Pisces goes through May. Pluto's going to stay in Capricorn for a while because it's very slow moving. And the sun is going to be out of Capricorn. I don't know exactly, but it's like 5 days or something like that, or 6 days. It's going to be heading into Aquarius. So this particular window here is about 4 days long, and it will last through like the 20th or 21st. Great question. Anybody else? Okay.
I think that's it.
All right. So this is another way this is one of my new slides for the new year that I decided to see what you guys think of this. So what I did here is I've got our axis, right? Our 4 elements, air, earth, fire, and water. And I made the size of the wedge commensurate with how many planets are in those signs. So you can see we've got this big green wedge here. And what this means is that we have 5 planets in earth signs. Then we've got 4 planets in water signs, including the moon, which is what we're focused on. I think it's 3 in air signs. And I would say planets, it's also asteroids and points. So 3 placements in air signs and 2 in fire signs. So what you can see is that we have a lot of earth energy here overall. And our second biggest energy component is a water energy, if that makes sense. So then what I did is I labeled each of the overlapping quadrants with just a couple of words that kind of symbolize to me what it means when we put these energies together. So for example, for fire, I chose action. For air, I chose inspired. For water, I chose feeling. And for earth, I chose practical. So that means that like the fire and earth quadrant is practical action, practical because of earth, action because of fire. And the fire and air quadrant is inspired action. So now it's inspired because of air and then action because of fire. Air and water quadrant is inspired feeling. And then the water and earth quadrant is practical feeling. So I'm trying to just take the elemental analysis and then expand that to like, what does that mean for what we're doing here? So we can see that the quadrant that's highlighted in this particular energy is the water earth. The feeling, feel into what creates emotional nurturing and connection for you. And then finding partners and shield mates to create that emotional abundance. So you can see I'm using some of the keywords from this trine, like shield mate from Pallas, connection from Neptune. Keywords from the moon involve emotion. Keywords from Cancer involve nurturing. So we're going to use our feelings here to come up with practical ideas to create this nurturing. And then the quadrant that's the least highlighted is the practical action, because we don't have very much fire at all here. So don't get distracted by love or romantic partner influences. I can't tell you how often people, ask me for a reading and they say, oh, I just want a general reading. And we talk about whatever we talk about. And then I say, do you have any more questions? And then they say things like, what can I do to get a boyfriend? And I'm like, okay, I appreciate that you want a boyfriend. I appreciate that you don't want to be alone. But life is not a vending machine where you take the right actions and put in your coin and then a boyfriend or romantic partner appears. Now, there are some astrological signs and situations where romantic energies are really highlighted. This just isn't one of those right here. But we can have this idea that, well, if I want more nurturing, I've got to find a partner. If I want more nurturing, I need somebody to go to the movies with or whatever. This is not the time to think about how am I going to find an outside source to meet all my nurturing needs, because that's not where the astrology energies are pushing us here. This is a time to feel into what creates nurturing for you and how you can create nurturing for yourself and others. And then, because we have an opposition with our practical Capricorn, postpone practical concerns about your long-term approach. This is a time to gain insight, connect, figure out what's going to be nurturing. And then we're going to get to Aquarius next. And Aquarius is that's the next new moon coming up. Aquarius is all about actually figuring out what you're going to do and making that analysis and making plans and figuring out how to make progress. So for now, don't worry about like, well, I don't know what this means. I don't know how to implement this. I don't know how I'm going to make money. Nobody's going to, like those long-term concerns, just don't deal with those yet. Get the information, connect with your sources of wisdom and insight, think about nurturing, and let the astrology propel you over time to help make that a reality. I promise we'll get there, but we're not there right now. Okay, what do you guys think about this way of looking at things? I'm going to give you a second to absorb this because this is a new slide. I'm interested in whether this analysis was helpful and interesting for you.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love how you labeled each sign or each element and then combine them together. I love it. Christina is saying that it is so helpful. Thank you, Robin.
Yay.
Super
Excellent.
interesting from Ava. I'm seeing smiles from people on camera.
Okay,
Let's see. There are some questions if you're ready for questions.
Yeah,
Okay.
I am.
Ava also said it really helps break it down.
Okay, good.
Kristen just
Thank you guys so much for that. That's really helpful for me to know that this was useful. I'll bring this guy back.
Yes. I am going to add, Joseph had the question, but I'm going to let Joseph unmute. Joseph, if you want to just ask that question, I think you'll do it more justice.
Sure. Okay, I'll try to articulate this. So in retrograde periods, like, it's said to the way it impacts people, but what if you're born with, like, say, for example, like if I have a retrograde Mercury in my chart and then a retrograde Uranus as well, however you pronounce that one.
Right, that's a really good question. So in general, retrograde planets in your chart, in your natal chart when you're born, they have a couple of effects. So one is that they give you, they tend to mean that you are preoccupied by going over past issues and thinking about what happened in your past in those areas. So like if you have a retrograde Mercury, you might really like to talk about the past, or you might need to discuss things that have happened in your past because Mercury is about talking and discussion, or learning. You might like to study or communicate about past sort of events. Or retrograde Uranus is about change and about unpredictability. So you might find that you're constantly going back and thinking about changes in your life and wondering whether things were a good idea, or you have a sense that your life in the past has been unstable in some sort of way. But the flip side of that is that retrograde planets also mean that you're very good at learning lessons from the past in the area that those planets cover from. So like you might find that other people who are like, oh, I don't like talking about the past. The past is the past. I just want to let go of it. And you're like, yeah, but you could like learn a lot when you talk about the past. You know, you think about what went wrong or what went right. You might learn a lot of lessons from that. Or maybe if you're thinking about retrograde Uranus and you're like, well, it's true, I think a lot about the changes in my life, but on the other hand, that means I'm well prepared for future changes because I really know how to think about change. If you have a lot of retrograde planets, you can find yourself sort of overly preoccupied by the past and constantly reliving past things. And then it can be helpful to figure out how to like not get stuck in the past, but to draw helpful lessons from it that then propel you into anticipating your future.
Thank you. Because I have 6 of them, and I was wondering if like a retrograde period means like a double serving, you know what I mean? Or like, you know, extra of that.
Yeah, it basically means that the energies of that planet are more backward looking necessarily than forward looking. And so it means that you're very good at rethinking over those energies. And you can give yourself a double serving of them, but you just want to make sure you're doing it in a way that is feeling positive and meaningful to you and not like you're getting sucked into this sort of like living in the past and not living in the present or the future as much. When I say living in the future, I don't mean that you should be worried about the future, but like not anticipating a positive future for yourself.
I'm really grateful for this because like I am a Cancer moon as well, and like lately I just been feeling like the past is, oh my goodness, you know.
Yeah, retrograde planets, consider yourself to have a superpower when it comes to thinking about your past. The thing about superpowers, like my husband's a huge Marvel movie fan. And the thing about superpowers is that they always have to find a way to make the power work for them. And early on in superhero journeys, there's always that moment when it doesn't work for them. You know, like they have the power to chill things, and then they get a glass out of the refrigerator and the whole thing shatters because they chilled it too much. So a lot of retrograde planets are like that, where you have this real superpower when dealing with the past, but you've got to learn to rein it in so that it doesn't overwhelm you.
Love that. I have a question building off of what Joseph said, and I've heard this before, and I'm asking if you agree with it. I heard that if in your natal chart, if you were born during a Mercury retrograde or any other retrograde, that when it comes around again, when it transits, that you're more comfortable, that like the rest of the world might be like, in a Mercury retrograde, and you're just like, well, this is the way it was when I was born, so I'm more comfortable in Mercury retrograde. It doesn't really faze me.
I think that can definitely be true. Yeah, it's a familiar sort of energy. It feels to you like normal, like the way things should be. So you can definitely be more comfortable. That doesn't mean that whatever's happening with Mercury retrograde doesn't affect you, but it may be more of a sort of like your natural energy or your natural way of communicating. Mercury goes into retrograde like 3 times a year. So it's not like, oh my gosh, an asteroid is coming. This has never happened to us before. Everything, we don't know what's going to happen. Like since the dawn of time, Mercury is kind of retrograde 3 times a year. So it's very like, it's an energy that many of us are very comfortable with. If you've lived to age 30, then you've lived through 90 Mercury retrogrades.
Yep.
Yeah,
let's just say 90 for me. I'm about 30. I'm about 30.
I'm going to be at 100.
A couple more comments and questions if you have time for more questions.
I'm fine if you're fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ava said she can catch the dates for how long the energy will last for Neptune, Pisces, Pluto, and Capricorn. For the energies that are present right now, how long will those last?
Okay, so these energies trining the moon is going to last like for a couple of days, like say from now. So these energies affecting the Cancer moon is going to last until like the 20th or the 21st maybe. So we got about a 4-day window right here where these energies are affecting the Cancer moon, because the moon is then going to move into Leo. The moon is only in any given sign for 2.5 days. So it doesn't stay there for very long. The moon's moving into Leo. But the planets, Neptune is in Pisces all year. Jupiter is in Pisces through May. Pluto is in Capricorn all year. And Venus, I'm not sure about Venus, but Venus is in Capricorn for, I don't know, but I think it's a couple of months. So maybe 1 month. And I'm not sure about the asteroids. I'd have to look that up and figure that out. So, but anyway, but Pisces and Neptune is all year. And then Jupiter and Neptune actually are going to be conjunct on April 12th. So that's going to be something that we'll talk about because that's a super, super abundance and mysticism conjunction that's coming up. So yeah, but with this moon energy, we're looking at a couple of days.
Thank you. I think that is it for questions.
Okay.
Not
And
seeing anything.
yeah, okay, that's my final slide here. And then I do have our ritual when we come up for that. Or if you want me to share the ritual now, I could do that. Ooh, okay, people, looks like I see Nicole saying that she has Cancer in her 4th and 5th houses. Fist bump, Cancer in the 5th, means you have fun nurturing people. Yeah. 4th house is about home and family, so you probably love to nurture your home and you have a bunch of people who feel like family to you, chosen family.
I just want to ask the group, especially for those of you who come to all of these meetings, does everyone know how to find their own free natal chart? Because a lot of times that would be helpful if you want that deeper dive into how does this affect me personally, to have your charts with you on these events. So if anyone needs to know how to get their own chart, we can post that in the chat.
I see a couple people are asking me to speak on Cancer moon in the 11th. So yeah, 11th house is about groups and about your relationship to society. It's specifically about the rewards that you get from contributing to society. So if you have a Cancer moon in the 11th, then you are looking at feeling nurtured as part of a group. Like, it's not surprising that you joined us today because this is a great 11th house event because we're all here in a group nurturing each other. So it means you feel nurtured in groups. You tend to get isolated if you're by yourself too much. And that's not that you don't like one-on-one relationships, but there's something about being together to do something together that is very useful. But it also may mean that you feel like you're really suffering in this COVID time because COVID has put the kibosh on a lot of groups. And people who used to meet for drinks or at the library or whatever, your coworkers, it's not a group anymore. So if you have Cancer in the 11th house, it's really important to get your butt on Zoom or organize some group phone calls with family or friends or something like that, because you need to nurture in a group, but you also feel nurtured by being in a group. So don't let COVID get you isolated because that is not healthy for you. I will mention, by the way, that it's perfectly fine if you don't have a time of birth. What you should do, here's the quick version. If you don't have a time of birth, choose a time around sunrise that puts the sun in the 1st house, and you can get a good reading from that. Or you're welcome to email me. I'm going to put my email in the chat. You're welcome to email me and I'll help you figure out a chart that works for you. There we go. Oh my gosh, I have cried in the shower so much. I had a huge meltdown in the shower the other day. So yeah. Yeah, no, Christina, you can totally get a great reading without your birth time. My dad doesn't have a birth time. And actually, if you want a reading with me, I can help you work to figure out a birth time that will work for you. As long as I do an ancient type of astrology, which is a couple thousand years old and predates the development of actual clocks. So back in the day, they didn't have the ability to say, oh, you're born at 12:23. They could only say like you're born, between 12 and 1. And so there's an old way of doing astrology where the birth time is not quite as crucial. And we can actually get within a couple of hours pretty easily by just asking you a few questions about your life and things like that. So if you want that, I will help you. Oh my gosh, Joseph, I love it. The shower is truly a temple of the self. I have to just tell you, that makes me feel a lot better. I feel a lot better because my spirit guides have a great love for ambushing me in the shower. They're like, you can't distract yourself with your phone now. Now we've got you. Now you have to listen to us for 10 minutes. I love that. That's so true. I think we need a book. I think we need a book titled The Shower, the Temple of the Self. That's genius. So genius. Oh, I love it.
All right. I'm not seeing any more, any more questions. I think everybody knows how to get their chart, so that's good. And you know how to reach out to Robin if you need help. I guess we can go on into the rituals.
Okay. Am I starting the rituals or do you have something you want to say? No, I should just start. Okay. All right. Back to the screen share. All right. So I was really inspired. Excuse me. I was really inspired for this ritual by, I was on another Zoom actually. Sorry, get through this slide. Here we go. I was on another Zoom. Can you guys see my screen here? Yeah. Okay. So I was on another Zoom and a woman was distraught because she had, and I don't know if she had COVID, but she'd gotten sick somehow. And she felt like she was unable to care for the people who needed her. And she had a family member who needed help and she couldn't care for them because she was literally just too sick to go over there and do anything. And she couldn't listen to them on the phone, you know, for a long time the way she had been able to before she'd gotten sick. And I realized that a lot of us are in this position where we're not able to care for the people that we're used to caring for, partly just because with COVID, we can't go over there anymore. You know, we don't see people around the water cooler the way we used to at work. You know, we can't give each other hugs as much as we used to get. But what I realized as I listened to her is that she had this idea that the way that she could care for this person was by like physically going over there and bringing them food and listening to them. So it was like she could care for them to the degree that she was able to marshal her physical body into their space and do things for them. And I thought to myself, you know, that's great that you care for somebody like that and that you listen to them and bring them food and hug them or whatever. But there are a lot of other ways to help people too. And I realized for myself, because I had gotten very sick earlier, many years ago, and I had the same reaction. Oh no, now I can't take care of anybody. Now I'm not useful. And I realized that for myself, what that meant was I had much less faith in my spiritual ways or my metaphysical ways of helping people, and much more faith in the physical ways of helping people. Like, well, I feel like I've helped if I went over there and brought her some food and then listened to her cry for an hour. That helped. But well, if I pray for her, well, if I ask my spirit guides, who knows if that's really going to do anything? And I felt like, you know, COVID is really asking us, how much do we believe in energetic help or spiritual help or metaphysical help? And so I put this ritual together to harness those energies. So our goal here is to get people from this left experience of being unconnected, not nurtured, out of the emotional, energetic nurturing of the water or wherever they belong, and into this right hand experience where they feel like there's an energetic connection, somebody looking out for them. They are being helped and shepherded through life like these little adorable goslings with this parent goose. So what sort of energies are we thinking of marshaling to help these people if we can't help them in a physical sort of way because we're not able to be there, because we're sick, or because sometimes what they're struggling with is not something that can be helped physically. I think we've all had experiences of wishing we could help people, but then they're not really in a place where they can listen to you, or you don't really have experience with whatever they're going through, and you try to say the right thing, but it doesn't really seem like it's helping. So this was just a quick list of all of the other energies that are out there that can be marshaled to help this person that you want to help. So there's a bunch of metaphysical energies here on the left: spirits in their home, spirits on their land, spirits of their property if they live by a river or they have trees or rocks or they live near a mountain, spirit guides, which they have, even if they are not in touch with their spirit guides, you can still ask their spirit guides for help. Of course, source or divine connection, whatever you believe about that. But there are all types of resources here on the right-hand side that are inside of the person. You can ask and send energy for healing their inner child, for marshaling the wisdom and love and nurturing of their inner parent, for helping those people connect with their own higher selves or their own intuition. People are sometimes in a state, and I have been in this state where I just couldn't listen to what anybody else said. But like if my intuition came up with something, then I was open to listening to that. So especially if people aren't listening to you or you feel like you're not saying something that's helpful for them, you can actually ask for better connection for their own intuition to come up with those answers that you're so sure that they need. So the ritual is this: figure out whom it is that you want to nurture. And that could be you, that you need nurturing, or it could be a person that you know, a family member, or it could be the president, or it could be the Amazon rainforest, or it could be a pet, right? It's anything that comes to you that you're like, wow, I really would like to help so and so. And of course, you could do this for multiple people, yourself and somebody else if you wanted to. And then we're going to ask the moon in Cancer, which is so good at nurturing, who should be on the nurture team? Now, your intuition, maybe you looked at this list and you're like, oh my gosh, she lives right next to the river. I'm totally going to ask the spirits in the river. Or maybe the person that you want to help, you know that they would love some of this, like so-and-so, so into connecting to her intuition. I'm definitely going to ask that. But I think there's something to be said for asking the moon to give you some wisdom about who should be on the nurture team. You don't have to just pick one. You could pick a whole planet panoply. You could create a football team or a soccer team to assist this person, whoever it is. So once you figure out what spirits you want to engage, this was my suggestion. So write their names down, the name of the person, the name of the energies you're trying to engage, and what you want them to get help for. Do they need more positivity? Do they need less fear? Do they need to heal their grief? Do they need to release their ideas about what life should be like and start embracing what their life is like, right? Use your intuition, reach out to the moon for what it is that really would make a difference in this person's life. And then step 4 is to create a little sort of supportive place in your home or on your property or in your mind, although I like doing these with physical objects, that symbolizes those supportive energies that you're trying to marshal. And then put it in a place where you will see it regularly for the next 2 weeks. Now I picked 2 weeks because 2 weeks from now we're having another moon event and we'll be on to some other energies, but obviously you could leave this out for much longer if you wanted to. So every time you walk by it, every time you're in that room, you send that positive energy and you reach out to the spirit's source, the inner parent, and say, I'm sending more positive energy to so-and-so for release of grief or, healing inner trauma or finding a new job or whatever it is that you want for this person. So step 1, who do you want this for? Step 2, assemble the team. Step 3, write down the names and the help. And step 4, create a place where you can send this positive energy to them. And I'll show you what I did, and then we can back up and if you have any questions about this. So here's my example. This is a bird bath, which I found outside when we moved into this property. It's a rental property, and the last person here loved garden ornaments. But I loved this bird bath and the symbol of like the loving hands with the 2 birds, and it just felt so nurturing to me. So I picked a friend of mine who's been having all kinds of health problems. I wrote her name, and she is a Christian, so I think divine connection is going to be really meaningful to her. And then I wrote what I want for her. I'd like better health. I'd like insight into what brings better health. And then I think she could use some personal growth. So that's what I'm asking for. I cut out a circle because it was the shape of the moon. I put a pearl necklace here because pearls are associated with the moon. And because Cancer is associated with water, so pearls come from the sea. And then this is a sand dollar, which I found on a walk at the beach, and you can see it's broken. And I put it here because this symbolized to me like my friend Aisha's missing piece, bringing in that insight about what can improve her health, bringing in the personal growth. And I stuck this on my table where I eat breakfast every morning. And so every morning when I sit down to breakfast, I'm just going to take a moment and ask for divine energies and divine connection for Aisha to help her in these 3 areas. And I've done this before with other people, and I have a couple other versions of this ritual. Sometimes I pull in objects that I know are meaningful to the person, like if they like jewelry or they like cats or whatever. And it's actually made a really big difference for people in the past. So I thought I would pull it out for this thing because it seemed Cancer-y. And of course, it had to do with the moon. And then this is my contact information here, my website, my email, and my Instagram if you want to contact me. But of course, I'm open for more questions. What do you guys think about this? Do you feel like this is something you could use to help people that you aren't necessarily in touch with? And part of the idea is that then it soothes you so that you're not so worried about this person, or you don't feel so bad because you can't go over to their house or talk to them as much as you'd like to, because you're marshaling the energies around us to help nurture this person. Thoughts or questions?
I love that. And Ava says it's beautiful. Janetia, I hope I'm saying your name right, says it's great. Anna says it's very beautiful. I love the idea. I love it. I love it.
Great.
Awesome. Christina says, first of all, Christina, I love that your cat is your personal masseuse. I love that. I've been watching it and thinking, I want a cat. I want my dog to rub my shoulders. But Christina says that her parents are elderly and far away, and this will be great to do for them.
Yeah, I found that this was really soothing, and one of the things that it did that I really liked is I stopped worrying about the person, because now I'm doing something. So my brain is distracted by this positive healing energy that I'm asking for. And I'm not sitting there thinking like, I hope they're okay. I wonder what's happening to them. You know, gosh, I wish I could be there. Like, it transformed the negative sort of fear and uncertainty based energies into much more positive and loving energies. And then when I would text them, instead of saying, hey, are you okay? I was just concerned about you, which is kind of, you know, that might exacerbate their worries. I was like, hey, I've been sending you healing energy. Is there any good news about your diagnosis, you know, or whatever it was? And so even the way I communicated with them became much more positive in my own mind.
Love that.
Good. I'm glad you.
It looks like Anna has done something similar called a care jar, but she likes how yours is right out in the open, and she says it resonates stronger, and it's a good reminder.
Good. Good. All right. Well, I'm glad you guys like it. Thank you for your positive feedback. It's really helpful for me. I have my moon in the 11th house. It's not in Cancer, but it is in the 11th house. So I definitely am very focused on group feedback.
Love it.
It means a lot, especially concrete feedback, because I have my moon in Capricorn. So this is very helpful to me. Thank you guys so much. I treasure your comments.
So I said I did not have a ritual, and I don't, but I do have something that I wanted to know just because it came up for me personally, and I thought it might benefit some of the rest of you. So in the beginning, where we talked about all of the phases of the moon and what each specific one does, I want to talk about the moon. I feel when I think of the moon, I think of my mood, I think of my emotions. And I also think of intuition and shadow work, like digging beneath the surface. But usually the first thing I think of are my emotions. So when I'm feeling kind of funky, I go through all of the usual, you know, I try to sit in meditation, I call in my spirit guides, I try to figure out why am I feeling this way. Sometimes it's easy and I'm done with figuring it out in 5 minutes. Sometimes I'm just like, I can't shake this. Is this somebody else's energy? What is going on? So that's where I was a couple of days ago. And something told me, look at my moon calendar, because y'all, I don't know if y'all were here at the last one, but I actually made a moon calendar / journal for that was available. And it showed me throughout the month, every day, what phase the moon was in, and also what sign the moon was in, and in what element it was in. So on that particular day, I'm a fire sign. I very much strongly identify with the fire sign. On that particular day where I was feeling funky, something said, look and see where the moon is. The moon was in Taurus. I forget the exact phase. It was only a couple of days ago. So it was one of the growing phases, waxing phases. But because it was in Taurus, I realized that energy, which is that very cover, and I was feeling so tired. I didn't want to do anything. Because it was in Taurus, I was just like, oh, that makes sense. Taurus is the sign. When I think of Taurus, I think comfy pajamas, surrounded by my favorite snacks, sitting on the couch under my favorite blanket, watching my favorite movie on a marathon. It's very comforting. So when I'm thinking to myself, I've got all these things to do and I'm just feeling unmotivated, and why do I want to nap? And then I find out the moon is in Taurus, I'm just like, oh, okay. So I'm saying that to say that if you're interested and you're able to track the moon to figure out why am I feeling this way, or maybe even looking ahead as you think about what's the best day to schedule that luncheon with my friends. Probably for me, it would not be when the moon is in Taurus. It would be when it's in a fire sign, when I'm feeling most comfortable, when I'm feeling active and extroverted. So it might be a way to not only plan ahead, but a way to look at what's going on in my life right now. Why am I feeling this way, when you can't figure it out through other methods? So I don't know if you all are familiar. I've shown this in another Zoom and I don't remember which one it is, but it's a mood tracker. They're available all over online. This one specifically, you create your own color codes on most of the mood trackers. So you decide what your moods are going to be. And then as you go through the month, you color in how you're feeling each day. I find that if you take that and you also take a look at a moon calendar and kind of combine the two together, you might be able to more, I was going to say decipher. What's the word? Spirit's giving me words right now, and they're telling me the words I'm using are wrong. Decipher is not the word, but you might be able to work more closely with the energies. And so my whole goal for these events, and Robin's goal as well, we talk about this in private and in these groups, I've mentioned it several times, is not just to vomit all of this information onto you, but to give you a practical way of how can I apply this in my life and this specific situation, what's going on with me on my spiritual journey, not just in this broad blanketed term for everyone, but how you can apply it to you. So I think this is one way that you can use these energies to just kind of track. And after doing this for probably just for a month, you're going to start to see trends in your energy level, in your diet, in when you feel like doing things and when you don't feel like doing things. So I found that useful for me to look at my mood and also look at what the moon is doing. But beside emotions, you can also look at it as far as your intuition. If you have those days where you just don't feel connected, you've tried meditation 15 times and you're not getting anywhere, you keep falling asleep. You can also look and see, okay, how is the moon affecting my intuition? Maybe when it's in this sign, it's harder for me to connect in this specific way. Maybe I could, if it's in an earth sign, get out in nature as a way to connect with the moon when I'm feeling the disconnect. So it's a way to connect. Emotions are where I always go, but also your intuition. If you feel those pockets where you don't feel connected, or those pockets where you feel super connected, look and see what the moon is doing, because the moon is the one that rules our intuition. It's attributed to our intuition. And also any shadow work. Lastly, I want to mention that there might be times that it would be most beneficial for you in your particular situation, in your particular star signs, to do that shadow work. And times when it's not. Maybe now with the Cancer, if you are a highly emotional person and you're dealing with the full moon in Cancer, maybe not the best time to do shadow work. Maybe wait until it's in a more grounded sign. So you can use this to not just track your mood, but track some other spiritually based things in your life as well. So right now, you can go anywhere online and just type in mood tracker, and there's a lot of free downloads. I like this one because it's a coffee cup. I'm working on, it's in the works, creating a moon tracker, or maybe a mood tracker. I don't know, where it has it all together, where you can see the sign and track your mood, but that's not available. Put that out there as a tool for you all to maybe figure out, how is the moon affecting my day-to-day life? And I think that's all I have to say about that, as Forrest Gump says. All right. Just seeing if there's anything in the notes. Anything you wanted to say, Robin?
Yeah, well, I think that's totally true. And so one thing you could do, I wanted to mention that there are phone apps, free phone apps, that will automatically tell you what sign the moon is in and what phase it's in. And so what I would suggest you do if you're doing that mood tracker is every day you color in your mood or whatever it is, and just check your phone and write down like Leo waxing, or, you know, Cancer third quarter, or whatever it is, and just write that down next to whatever you colored in for that day. And then at the end of the month, you might see that, wow, all the bright red ones are next to the fire signs, and all the, you know, all the down moods are in the water signs. And then this can also be just the general energy of the moon, or it might be something that has to do with your particular chart. So for example, some people are like, oh my gosh, I love my moon energy. Every time the moon is in my sign, I always feel so great. And you're like, really? I never feel great when the moon is in my sign. And then it turns out that your moon is conjunct Saturn. So it's like, okay, your lunar energy has this challenge because Saturn often makes things feel like things are falling apart, or like something's ending or whatever. So not everybody's moon energy is the same depending on how it relates to other planets around it. So if you have any questions about that, you can always email me. You can take a look at your chart and see, but I don't want you to feel like I'm supposed to feel amazing around the moon because Valerie loves her moon and then my moon is not so great. There are ways to help you feel amazing about your moon, but your moon may be one of those like creative problem solving challenges where you learn to feel amazing about your moon rather than having it come out naturally. And so if you're feeling that and you're thinking this is good, but then you're like perplexed, ask spirit to help you, ask your higher self for insight, email me. We'll figure out what it is and how you can learn to really leverage the moon energies in your chart.
Love that. Thank you. Well, I think that concludes our event, unless you had something else you wanted to add, Robin. Is that going to do it for us?
Yes, I want to add that we're having an amazing class on the 23rd.
Yes, yes. I was going to mention the upcoming classes. Go ahead, Robin. Talk about it. Coming up next weekend.
Yeah, next weekend. So this was something that was really life-changing for me, and I really wanted to share it with you guys and anybody else who wants to come, which is to realize it's actually kind of what I said, that not everybody's planets are in equally positive places in everybody's chart. And one person has amazing Venus energy and another person has like their Venus energy just doesn't work right for them. And a lot of times in Western culture, we tend to blame ourselves or we blame our parents or it's our upbringing or it's our health or whatever. But it turns out that the ancients realized that actually where the planets are placed in your chart can tell you what energies are expressing themselves naturally and easily for you and what energies need help. So then I asked my spirit guides, why does anybody have energies that need help? How come we all don't have beautiful, naturally expressing energies in every area? And they said, because the ones that need help is where your free will comes in. That's where you as an individual say, you know what? I don't always feel like I have amazing Venus energy, but darn it, I want to. I want to be a better communicator. I want to have better relationships. I want to feel more natural abundance in my life. I want to feel excited like Valerie is, And it's like looking at your chart can help you see what energies need help. And then because the ancients were geniuses when it comes to this, they have all kinds of like really practical things you can do to help those energies express more naturally from your diet, crystals, rituals, meditations. It's all like ancient astrology was much like modern medicine, where you got a diagnosis of your problem and then there was a bunch of treatment you can do. And so we're really bringing that back because it kind of fell out of modern astrology, which was really all psychological, but doesn't give you so many sort of like suggestions for how to improve things. So the first class, which is coming up on the 23rd, is just how to figure out which planets need help in your chart, which energies need assessment, which we do by figuring out what house they're in, how they're affected by other planets. We're going to have a celebrity example of Ronald Reagan, which I was not excited about an old white guy example because I try to do people of color and women, but my spirit guides were insistent that no, Ronald Reagan was the example we need. And now that I've done the analysis, I'm like, shoot, he really is a good example of this. So he's our celebrity example. Anyway, that will empower you. You can bring your chart with you. That will empower you to figure out what planets you need help with. And then we are going to, Valerie and I are going to have some follow-up classes where we go through the suggestions for what to do about it. The crystals, the rituals, the diet, the meditations, whatever it is that you're working on, so that you will then be able to say, wow, I learned in that first class that my Venus needed help. And now in the second and third classes, here's the options of what I could do to work with my Venus and have my Venus energy express more naturally. So come to the first class so that you can figure out what you need and then hang on for the second few. And Valerie's going to put the recording up just in case you can't make it. It'll be on her YouTube channel.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I'm like a refugee of the Western medical system. They could not find anything wrong with me. And really, things helped like Band-Aids until I found this. It's called astrological remediation. And once I found this, it was like this world opened up and I'm like, oh, wow, now I'm actually feeling better. I'm actually feeling better. Oh my gosh, I'm actually feeling better. And all I did was wear some different jewelry and eat different fruits and meditate with Mercury. I'm actually feeling better. Like I didn't have to go to the doctor. It didn't cost me a lot of money. Anyway, so this is not a cure for cancer necessarily. If you break your arm, go to the emergency room for sure. But this is a way to work through some of those energetic obstacles, problem areas. Why can't I ever get blank to work for me? This may be what you need to really help you get into a new new life area in those places, those trouble spots. So it's called Troubleshoot Your Natal Chart, and it is on the 23rd. And Valerie put the link in the meetup.
Yes. And I just want to add, I'm super excited about this series. It's all about, for me, it's all about how can I live the most aligned life. And so taking a look at my natal chart and figuring out how I can bring that into balance is a tool for my toolkit for sure, as far as living a more aligned life. So I'm so excited that Robin came up with this idea and that we're able to pull this together for you.
Yeah, this is something that really people were doing, did like 2,000 years ago.
Yes.
And I feel so honored by the people. There are people who've started retranslating the ancient Greek, and they're bringing this knowledge back to us. And it basically got thrown out with the scientific revolution in modern medicine. But it doesn't go against medicine. It doesn't tell you not to take medication. It doesn't tell you not to see the doctor. They coexist beautifully. It's just a whole additional health and wellness technology that kind of just got lost. And so I feel really honored to be able to bring this back into the modern world.
And I do want to mention, aside from Ronald Reagan that she mentioned, she's also offering mini readings where she's only going to be able to cover about 4 within the presentation, within the event. So if you want to be one of those 4 who are, if you're open to sharing your information in public in the group, because it will be recorded, go on and sign up now, because those spots are going to go fast. And then if you don't get a chance to be an example in the live presentation, I believe Robin is extending that.
Yeah, so I'm offering a 10-minute mini reading for $10. So this is your chance to dip your toe in for a relatively small amount of money. I understand that not everybody wants to, spring for a giant reading, especially if they haven't had a reading, or you've had other readings maybe and they didn't go so well. The astrologers, you didn't like their approach. So for 10 minutes, it's a mini reading, and I'm going to do probably the first 4 in the group where I will troubleshoot your natal chart for you. And so I'm going to use your chart as an example of how we figure out which planets and signs are in need of energetic support. And then if more people sign up than just the 4 that we can fit in live, I will email you after the event with a link where you can just sign up for a time on my calendar that works for you. And we'll do a Zoom call and I will do the reading for you. So we did this with the Spirits Whispers reading and it worked out great. People said that they really enjoyed it and got a lot of valuable insight. And part of what I want to do is make astrology financially accessible, so that it's not like, well, I don't have $250 and therefore I can't get an astrology reading. And so this is my way of saying, all right, if you want to troubleshoot your natal chart and you want some expert advice, here's an affordable petit four version, a little cake version of an astrology reading.
Yep. Thank you, Rob. And so we're looking forward to that. We hope you all sign up for it and attend that one. We have our new moon celebration. I believe it's on the 29th. I just saw that on a Saturday. And then we also, of course, have other Tarot Unicorns and Coffee events, our regular weekly events on Monday, the card pull on Wednesday, the group meditation, which I just love. And what else do we have coming up? Oh, we're going over the major arcana. So if you're interested in Tarot, we are going over the major arcana in a 3-part series, and that's also on the calendar. So thank you all so much for coming to this celebration. I hope you take some of this information and some of these tips and tricks with you and actually celebrate on the full moon. Go out under the full moon. Well, if it's snowing, at least open your window and look at the full moon. And thank you so much. This is amazing. I love the energy that you all bring to these events. So thank you for being here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I just want to mention that the ritual that I'm preparing for the Aquarius new moon is not just a little targeted ritual like what we have here. It's actually a life hack, I guess you could say, that will apply to all kinds of situations. This is something I came up with one of my spirit guides, and it has helped me, and my clients tell me it helps them a lot when I share it. So it's very Aquarian in nature. So I'll be getting into that, but I think that next event's ritual is something that's going to be really highly practical for all kinds of situations going forward.
Love it. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.